Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Spider-Man: The Lost Hunt, issue number 1. Holy crap, probably the best thing that's happened to Spider-Man. Well, since this story was apparently never told before. This is supposed to be the untold origin of Kraven the Hunter. This is also, and all this stuff is in the back of the book. This is also supposed to be, when Ben Reilly took the scene and all this, the clones were all over the place, and Spider-Man, Peter Parker proper, the real Spider-Man, was hanging out in frickin' Portland, Oregon? Yeah. Well, as it turns out, this is actually the story of what he was doing while he was over there. He was going through some serious nightmarish kind of crap. This is sick. I loved this. Welcome back, J.M. DeMatteis, to who you are always meant to be. Probably the greatest Spider-Man writer of all time. Sorry, Stan Lee. Also Dan Slott. It is what it is. Interesting that Slott is writing Spider-Man again during this particular point. Sorry, guys. I gotta go with this one over that one. This is out of control. This is... Let's tell you what this is. Okay, guys, the people responsible for this book are as follows. The writer, J.M.D. Mother Effin Matteis. Penciler, Eder Messias. Inker, Bellardino Bravo. Colors, Niraj Menon and Chris Peter, as opposed to Peter Chris. I knew a Peter Chris. Plus, there's also Pete Chris from Kiss, the drummer. Beth, I hear you calling. Okay, and VC's Joe Caramagna on letters. Ryan Brown doing the cover, and there's a couple of variant covers out there too. Check them all out. Of course, Spider-Man was created by Stan Lee with Steve Ditko. Guys, so apparently there are 2 new characters in here that some people have been speculating about for a while. A quick Google search let me know all that. And I don't know, personally, I think that the chick is Callisto. I know they're giving a different name, but I mean, was her name really Callisto? Like Callisto, whatever the hell that last name was, the spicy caliente last name thing? Like, I don't know. It's just me. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be Callisto. As far as the other guy, I actually thought that was the Grim Hunter for a good bit until they're indicating that no, it wasn't. Well, damn, that pisses me off. I don't know. Is it like Tendril reincarnated or something? I don't know. That would be perfect for the story, right? Whoever this guy is, he's interesting. And he's clearly some kind of a relative of, what's his face? Of Sergei, the Kraven the Hunter proper. Clearly, right? He's on my Mishka. I look it up thanks to the power of Google. That means my mouse in Russian. That's some serious Cossack crap right there. Guys, I'm in love with this issue. I'm probably going to read it again. It was that good. It was that good. As far as recommendations are concerned, bang, it's like that. This is something where, at the very least, it will cause you to go back and start reading some of this stuff. In fact, after I reread this issue, I'm probably going to go back and start reading some old Spider-Man again. Because I miss the days when Spider-Man made me feel like this. It's funny, man. It's like coming out of cryo sleep. I've enjoyed this Spider-Man, that Spider-Man, this comic, that comic. I've enjoyed a bunch of comics here and there. I even liked the previous, the other comics that I've been reviewing this week. I did. I liked them a lot. But then I read this of a guy who just hasn't lost a footing, who hasn't lost a step, whose pace and gait is still the same. And I'm reading this and I'm like, God damn. This reminds me of, with all due respect, when comics were good. Not when 1 or 2 comics were good or pretty good or even great. No. When you read comic books back in the day, and any comic book that you picked up for the most part was good. Some were absurdly beyond belief. But some you read, you sat down and you just pick it up because you want to check it out. But like, this was pretty good. It wasn't the best, considering the fact that you were having filet mignon and ahi tuna and like the best freaking meals out there, driving Rolls Royces and Bentleys all over the place, and all of a sudden you get like a really great, well done cheeseburger, not well done, but done well cheeseburger, and you're riding in a 20-year-old Beamer, and you start thinking to yourself, I mean, there are worse things. let's say a 10-year-old Beamer, let's do it that way, right? There are worse fates in life, right? But this, oh my God. Guys, this is what it's like. If you're one of the younger generations, if you're not closer to your 50s than your 40s like me, if you're sitting there and you're just like, you're young and you're dumb and you're, the follow up to that, you're young and you're just reading comic books and you've only been in comic books for the past 3 or 4 years, and you've heard me or some other old head talking about, I'm much older than an old head, talking about, what it was like back in the day, and you think it's just nostalgia that we're talking about. Read this. Read this issue. Feel what we felt all the time when there were no less than 4, not mini-series or one-shots or whatever, 4 regular, ongoing Spider-Man comics. When the X universe was more interesting than it could possibly have ever been fathomed it would be, and there were lots of X books. When Conan the Barbarian was still in a regular Marvel comic book, and there was no thought of it going anywhere because of the incredible stories that it was producing. When comic books were known to be amazing. They're talking about in here, like when Grudge was, a big thing, back in the day. Forget about Grudge. How about when Liefeld and McFarlane and some of these other guys that, Jim Lee was a Marvel guy instead of, in charge of DC comics and movies. When you could pick up Guardians of the Galaxy and it wasn't Peter Quill, right? Oh, he existed, but not in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Nobody thought he was going to be a Guardian, for crying out loud. When you'd pick up even a Guardians of the Galaxy and be like, this is surprisingly really good. Wow. When you were shocked that anything you picked up meant something. This is that. I should talk a little bit more about the comics. Some people get upset when I talk about how great a comic book is without telling about what the comic book itself is. I don't want to spoil too much, guys. That's just not what I'm here for. But this comic book, like I said, Peter Parker is going through Spider-Man. Spider-Man is going through a crisis. He's lost his powers. This is during a time period where he lost his powers and Ben Reilly had to be Spider-Man. Peter Parker is there with his pregnant wife, Mary Jane. Before there was ever any concept of a one last day or one more day or any of these day things. Even before there was a Back in Black, for all intents and purposes. Although there was kind of a Back in Black moment here, and I'm just like, it's perfect that I'm wearing an AC/DC t-shirt. I'm just now realizing that. Peter's trying to deal with what would eventually be called the Other, or at least that's what we're made to think until we realize what it actually is. I have a problem with spitballs or darts or whatever going through a window, like where the darts themselves, I think the darts themselves were going through windows, right? Or was it some kind of a gas that could go through windows? I don't remember that. Shoot. I can imagine Mateus doing something like that back in the days. Like a thing that would hit onto glass and then the smoke itself would be porous enough to go right through it. I can see him doing something like that, creating something like that. But either way, he makes this gas that, this guy makes this gas that just, Peter's having illusions all over the place. And the art in this, I'm not used to Eder Messias, if that's how you, Messias, whatever you pronounce his name. Apologize, I'm butchering that name. But he really does a great job at collaborating with Mateus on this. Because the things that are being said match perfectly with what the body language of the characters are. The things that you see around, like the smoke around this one character, like, was this guy on fire? Why is he smoking? And then suddenly you realize, oh, every time we see him smoking is because he's doing this, like he's going up in smoke, not, ew. Oh, okay. Makes so much sense. I love it, like the old A-Team, Hannibal. I love it when a plan comes together. He was smoking, that big stogie. So much that happens in this comic book. It's very cerebral. It's going to get you thinking. If you existed during that time, if you weren't just swimming in your dad's, if you were alive and reading comic books during the time that these stories were originally put out, it's a wow factor, right? You're looking back and this saying, okay, so this is what was going on. I can't wait to see what happens next and next and next, right? But what's more, I'm genuinely curious from you guys who weren't there during the time. If you weren't there, if you never read those old stories, how does this story pan out for you? Does this make you want to read some of the books that came out during that time? I'd have to, go back and try to remember which stories it were. It was Spider-Man Final Crisis or something like that. I'd have to look it up. If you guys ask in the comments, I'll look it up really quick and I'll mention it in the comments for you guys if you ask. But I'm genuinely curious how some of the younger guys or just anybody who's never read these stories back in the day, how do you feel about this issue? Because for me, I look at this, I'm just like, I can't wait to see what Peter was doing during those times. Because you heard about it in retrospect afterwards, but there was nothing to write home about, right? Here you're seeing that's just what Peter said or didn't say in this case, from the guy who was actually doing the stuff back during the time. And mind you, Fabian, however you pronounce his name, Fabian, there's no other Fabian. There's only one Fabian in the world. Nobody else would name their kid Fabian. Fabian Nicieza, whatever. Nicezia. He was writing a lot of that stuff during the time. But it was good. It was really good. I may not like him personally, but I gotta admit when somebody's got an amazing talent. I gotta know what you guys think who haven't read the stuff back in the day. You read this comic book, what did it do for you? What did it tell you? Did it make you want to read more? Does it make you more curious? Do you say, hey, Professor Bill's one of those old guys who knows, comic books like nobody's business, so let's see what he's got to say about it. My opinion on this is I am stoked to see what happens next. Absolutely stoked. Because here's an enemy who knows Peter, and when you've read the stuff of the other, and I love the little mention here, I'm like no other you've ever met. I'm not just some other that da-da-da-da-da. Like that little hint, like, hey, in case you didn't get it, here it is on top of your head, right? I knew exactly what this was. And I'm just like, oh, when the name drop happened, oh. But I read this, and I'm sitting here reading this stuff, and I'm just like, okay, this is all stuff that's going to come in the future. Stuff that J.M. DeMatteis is writing about this stuff right here. Later on, he would go on to write this, that, and the other thing, the stuff with the other. But now he's leading into it, but it turns out he's not. But maybe he actually is. And, ooh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see where this goes. Because I know where this goes. But I want to see how we get there. It would be like reading the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy and then going back and reading The Hobbit for the first time. And you say, oh, this stuff actually makes sense. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean about this. This is that good. Guys, if you know these stories, you should grab this comic book without a doubt. If you aren't familiar with these stories, I still think that it's going to be fascinating enough to you. But like I said, let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. Love and peace. Like the video, watch an ad. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.